my parents were on drugs. My brother died of gun violence. Like, it's such a Black American just story that's just so, it's not that I don't like to tell it. It's just like, oh, I'm so ready for us to be able to tell a new story.
Yeah.
You know?
And you are that new story.
Yeah.
You are that new story. I'm just going to empower you right now.
Yes.
Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome back to the Lifestyle Design Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in every week for our incredible episodes with light workers around the world. It would mean so much to me if you would subscribe and join our community, and also share your best episode, your best takeaways, because it helps us grow and expand and just spread well-being around the world. But next, oh my goodness, I'm so excited to introduce you to a beautiful, I consider angel in the world, Ebonee Davis.
That's big. That's major. Thank you.
You're major.
I appreciate that. I received that.
Yeah, I feel like when I look at your content, and even when I met you for the first time, you have just this beautiful aura around yourself, and you exude light energy. And so I just want to kind of just get some of that. I know it hasn't always been that, and you've been through a lot of grief.
Yes.
You've been through a lot of life, a lot of transitions.
Yes.
And I just want to share, because I feel like your story is so relatable with what a lot of us women go through, especially Black women, when it comes to the ups and downs of life. And you've done very well, but I love how you authentically share that it ain't always light.
It ain't always light. Yes.
I want to start with first of all, the book. I feel like the book is, first of all, I didn't know you had a book until recently. And then when I saw you had a book, I was like, oh goodness, we have to dive into it. And you just brought it to me. So I'm excited. And the title of it is Daughter. And I'm really big on family. Yeah. And so can you talk to me about this book, this title, why this title, Daughter, and how that's been a part of your journey?
So the title Daughter actually came to me the first time I sat in ceremony with plant medicine. And my ancestors really just pulled me back to them. I had kind of been in this world without any sort of spiritual affiliation and without really knowing my history and where I was from. And when I sat in ceremony with plant medicine, it was like all of this information just came back to me. And I was like, I am somebody and I have an identity in this world. And it's so much bigger than just this moment or just this incarnation. I've done this work so many times before, and I've been on this planet so many times before, and I have to pay homage and give reverence to those who have paved the way for me to be who I am in this lifetime. So daughter is in reference to me being, the female descendant in my bloodline. Also the motherland. During that plant medicine ceremony, they encouraged me to start my nonprofit organization, which is also called Daughter. And we sponsor trips back to West Africa for immersive experiences. And we've now expanded into retreats and different various places, especially places across the diaspora. But the whole point is just getting reconnected back to our roots, reconnected back to our soil. And I think I didn't have the consciousness of this particular point at that time, but I think daughter is also in reference to the divine feminine energy that is rising on the planet. It's so interesting how they gave me that title in 2019, and it just continues to increase in meaning over time. We are at such a pivotal time on this planet where we really have to pour into our daughters. It's the womb holders, it's the melanated womb holders who are really stepping up at this time, who are going to shift the trajectory of this planet so that we can move in the direction of compassion, love, and empathy. So that's daughter.
Oh, I love that. And y'all, Look at this cover. Just get a close up on that because I love it. It is ebony.
Yes.
And I love the fact that your fro is shaped like a heart. I don't know if that was intentional, but I feel like that was beautiful because I love hearts and I also love butterflies. And for me, butterflies symbolize like this transformation, this evolution. And I know you went through your own transformation. So can you talk a little bit about like where you grew up and how you've transformed into the Ebonee Davis that we see today?
Absolutely. I feel like I've gone through the butterfly, cocoon, caterpillar effect over and over and over so many times in my life. I grew up in a situation where both of my parents were addicted to drugs. At the time when I was born, my mother continued to use while my father went to rehab. And so when I was 4 years old, I went to go live with him. And that kind of created this abandonment wound between me and my mother. I kind of grew up as like a daughter, a young woman who didn't have that nurturing mother figure. And so there was a lot of things that I had to discover for myself. And, you know, my dad did the absolute best he could, but just generating enough income to sustain was always a challenge for him. And so by the time I was in the 7th grade in middle school, about 12 years old, he ended up losing the house that he was paying the mortgage for. He could no longer afford it, and the bank just took it from us. And so that was kind of like on the early end of the economic crash. I want to say it was like 2006. And I ended up living with a teacher of mine. I ended up living with my middle school teacher in the 8th grade. And I'm so grateful that she opened her home to me. And that time was so pivotal for me because I was attending an art school at the time where in language arts class, we learned poetry. Instead of doing PE, we did dance. So art was really integrated into the curriculum. And now as I am emerging into the world as my most authentic self, I realize that I'm just getting back to her. That was who is the most authentic expression of me, is that artist, that poet, dancer, you know, excited, exuberant, just that my inner child, you know, springing forth with all this life and love, like getting back to that middle school version of myself. You know, I think in retrospect, I'm able to say, although these circumstances were not very positive, especially for my father and, you know, his sense of pride and what he was capable of. It was all divinely orchestrated because, you know, I got the opportunity to live with my language arts teacher for a year. I've written a book. Like there's a correlation between those things, you know.
It's a blessing.
It's a blessing. It's a blessing in disguise. And so, but you know, those lessons only come like way later in the journey. Once you get past like the shame and the just all of those like dark feelings and stuff. But anywho, after my dad lost his house, I went back to live with my mother. I was under the impression that she was clean. She was not. And so in high school, I ended up moving around a lot. I lived with both of my grandmothers, between my mother's house, both of my grandmother's house. But I ended up graduating like top of my class, international baccalaureate program. I think I just ended up spending a lot of time at school because that's where I could find a sense of peace. Home was very chaotic. And
I feel like safety is so important when you're young. And sometimes people find that safety in athletics or in academia.
All the extracurriculars, all the academia. Like, I just poured myself into that because that's what felt like it was within my control. You know, when everything else kind of felt like it was out of my control, I was like, I can control my grades.
Hey, that's a beautiful thing to prioritize.
It is.
And so after getting through that and like really seeing, okay, well, this is where I'm going to be, what led you into like, okay, really developing your first sense of self? Because like you said, you've been through many transformations.
So I moved to New York in 2012. After I graduated high school, I went to the University of Washington for 2 semesters, but it was again, just like so close to home. I think just being in Washington, being in Seattle. And I was just like, I just want to pursue this modeling career. And I just want to also put a little distance between me and just like all this stuff that's happening over here. So I went to New York. It was very challenging. I got told no by just about every single agency. The one that I did sign with was like, we'll push for you when one of our other Black girls isn't available. I'm 19 years old. My self-esteem is shot. Like, I'm already just going into this situation feeling inferior, feeling less than, feeling super rejected by all of these agencies. But then around 2015, I started to notice, that's when like Instagram was starting to take off a little bit. And I started to notice this natural hair community forming on Instagram. And I was just like, I want to be a part of this. Something about this feels so right. And as that was like the tipping point into my sense of self, or my sense of just self-discovery and just unpacking all of the programming, because I was like, okay, if I could believe for, you know, however many years at the time, I think like 24 years at the time, that I'm not good enough with my natural hair, then what other self-limiting beliefs am I placing on myself? Right. And so something as simple or trivial as hair, which isn't simple and trivial in our community, but you know, it could be looked at as that vein, whatever. I think it's actually so much deeper, but something, you know, external like hair was really the catalyst into this deep exploration of my soul, where I began to unpack all of these limiting beliefs, not just from the modeling industry, but from my family, the behaviors, the habits. Like, what am I doing subconsciously that is not actually in alignment with who I am authentically? And so since 2016, I've intentionally been on this journey of self-discovery. I did my first plant medicine ceremony in 2019 with Iboga. I did ayahuasca in 2022. And those aren't necessary for the journey. I think they were beautiful moments for me, but I do want to emphasize the fact for anybody listening that these are initiations into frequencies that we can discover within ourselves, and that we have to do the work to maintain within ourselves. Right. That's not the end all be all, because you can go through the plant medicine and go right back into the mud that you came from and never rise up to that frequency again if you're not willing to do the work that it takes to integrate those lessons. Right. 100%. And so for me, the integration work since my journey in 2022 has been navigating so much grief after I left New York in 2018 and moved to LA. And I was there for 4 years. So I spent the pandemic there. And I just took on a lot of the LA energy, like no shade to LA, but because I take full accountability. I don't want to project it outward or say that it's anybody else's fault, but I got caught up more in the image of things than the actual being of things. And so when I did the ayahuasca in 2022, it showed me that. And it was like, okay, I have to get out of LA. Let me go move down south and be amongst some trees and some quiet and figure out who I am. You know, ended a relationship that I wasn't prepared to end, walked away from friendships that I wasn't prepared to walk away from, completely lost my income as a model because the market in Atlanta is so different from the market in LA. I didn't have access to the clients that I was working for anymore. So last year, 2023, I was like the brokest I've ever been. Credit card debt, in debt to my agent, no car, wondering how I was going to buy groceries, wondering how I was going to pay rent. Right. On top of that, I was also grieving my life in LA. On top of that, I was also grieving my baby brother, who I lost to gun violence in May of 2023. So it was, last year was like my biggest test yet. It was like my biggest test yet. And I feel like you came into my life at a time where I was just sort of beginning to find my light again, like spring of this year. I'm like, whoo, getting emotional as I say that. Girl. I didn't think I was going to cry. Oh girl, no, this is a safe space. We got tissue for you. Ooh, but not the makeup though. Hold on. Just dab it. Okay.
I always say that tears are pain leaving the body, and you just expressed a lot, like your whole life's journey and that big amount of grief that you went to get to where you are right now. And you're this beautiful, shining goddess. And it's just so beautiful to witness, you know? But we need a lot of support. I mean, the path that you're blazing and standing confidently and fiercely in also needs a lot of support. Absolutely. You know? And so I'm so glad we met, because I'm like, I got you, girl. I got your back.
And that's been the beautiful thing about Atlanta. Like, for a long time, I was like, Spirit, why did you tell me to move down here? here.
Yeah.
I don't have anybody here. I don't even have a car. I can't get nowhere. Like, but I have been able to find community in Atlanta like nowhere else. Conscious community, you know, Black women who are supportive and uplifting. And it's been such a vital part of my journey. And these, you know, the people that are coming into my life like me for me and not for my career or for the glamorous things that we love in the, you know, 3D reality. Oh, she's a model and she's, you know, living in LA and she has a nice car. Like whatever those things are that we idealize. It's like I'm meeting community based on my vibration, based on what I can contribute, the light that I carry, what I have to say, the value that I can add as a human being. And it just feels so good and so loving.
I love that. And I feel like one thing that you said that I want to kind of talk more about is the hair journey.
Yes.
And I love that you said, you know, really getting clear on your hair, it just really brought you into a deeper relationship with yourself. Because I know I used to wear a lot of wigs and a lot of pieces and a lot of everything. And it wasn't until my hair wrote me a poem. A whole poem was like, stop braiding me up and covering me up. And literally it just came like a stream of consciousness. And I was like, okay. And that's when I started my natural hair care journey and started looking on YouTube and falling in love. But I had to see other women who were in love with their hair. Versus like I was in LA as well and everyone was covering it up, whether it be a weave style or a wig style or a quote unquote protective hairstyle, which is still weaving bundles on top of your natural hair. And it took me a long time, but I would love to you expound more on how your journey with your hair led you to a deeper relationship with yourself.
So when I saw the community forming on Instagram, it was actually after. So it's funny how spirit works. It's like usually you go through some traumatic experience and then you change.
Yes.
Unless you get to the point where it's like, we're probably there now where it's like, okay, spirit, I don't need the trauma to learn the lesson. I hear you.
Yes.
I hear you. And I'm going to act without the evidence just because I hear you. You don't got to show me.
That part. Yes. More of that. We're calling that in for both of us. Like lessons without trauma. Lessons without trauma. We'll take that.
Loving lessons, please.
Yes.
But so I was working as a model in New York at the time, and I was on set and I was getting my hair done, and this hairdresser just completely fried my hair, and I just like I had to cut it, and it was just like this traumatic experience. I was telling her like this hot tool is like really hot, like you know, my hair is fine, it doesn't need all that heat. Like it was just very dramatic. And she was an African-American stylist, which I thought was interesting, but we don't got to get into that. You know, it's okay. It's okay. But so I was just like, okay, I need something different. I need a change. And then like you said, seeing people who love their hair is such an important thing. And that's what I saw when I was on Instagram, because it wasn't in the mainstream media yet. It was kind of like this underground thing, which is a cool thing about Instagram is like you can find the niche that you're interested in, and you can find the information that you're interested in that might not be widely accepted by the mainstream yet. And so for me, I was like, wow, I'm seeing girls with my hair texture taking care of their hair. I didn't even know there was products on the market for that. I didn't know that I could wear my hair curly until a few years ago, which is crazy. I've had the same hair my whole life. I never thought I could do this.
Right. And it looks gorgeous. I just love it. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. So that was like a huge shift for me. And I ended up in 2017 doing a TED Talk called Black Girl Magic in the Fashion Industry. Ooh. And I gotta tap in. We gotta link to that. Drop the link. Yes, tap in. And I basically just talked about the fact that it is the media's role to tell a different story. The stories that we ingest and the stories that we tell ourselves and the stories that we tell each other create our reality. And we know that as conscious beings, it's like if we continue to perpetuate the same belief systems in our psyche, whether that experience is a experience that is available or not, it's like we'll continue to bring in that experience. But if we want to quantum leap to a different experience, we have to tell a different story. Right. And that reality might be real for a group of people who have the belief that's associated with that reality, but it's like you have to train your mind to get into that other reality to have those different experiences. So yes, just I basically said, as creators of media, we have a responsibility to put out different stories. We can't continue to perpetuate the same ideas about Black people being inherently less than or being inherently criminal. That was also a very violent year. The year was 2016. Before I did the TED Talk, the year was 2016, and Alton Sterling and Philando Castile were murdered by the police that year. And I wrote this open letter to the fashion industry with the same sentiments. And that's how I actually got the TED Talk, is because the person who was coordinating the TED Talk event saw the open letter that I wrote to the fashion industry and asked if I would want to do it. But I think that was an act of God as well, because that was like early in my writing journey. I think that was the first piece I'd ever written.
Wow.
But I saw that and I was like, I have to say something.
Yeah.
It all kind of just dropped in. I'm like, I'm not a writer. Where is this coming from? It's like I made that one step with wearing my hair natural, and then all of a sudden, all of these things started coming in.
Yeah.
And so
it's almost like once you take the initiative, then everything that's in alignment with that starts pouring into your life, which is huge. I think that's a big thing for people listening to know. Like sometimes it's just you taking one right step.
Right.
You're looking outside for the answer, but it's like tuning within and then taking that next best step for you.
Yes.
So what's meant for you can align with you.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It was, the biggest, I had met someone around that time too, and they were just like, what would you tell people to prevent them from going through what you've been through? And are you living in your truth?
Yeah.
And those questions just stuck with me. And I was just like, wow, am I living in my truth? What is my truth? How do I live in my truth? But I think, the first part of that was like, what would you tell people to prevent them from going through what you've been through? That was sort of the first step in me discovering what my truth was. Because I was like, well, what have I been through? And what would I want to share to help other people navigate that? And I think that allowed me to just begin to unpack and release some of the shame. James Baldwin has this quote that's like, you think you're the only person in history that's been through something, and then you read.
Yeah.
And you find out like we're all in this thing together. And I think that's how a lot of people feel, is like they're so isolated in their experience and in their pain, but they don't realize like we're all in this together, especially, as African Americans, like we are operating within a system that is intentionally designed to create certain outcomes. And so many of our experiences are very similar, even though the details of it might vary. But if we can begin to tell those truths, within our community, it's like, you don't talk about it and you keep it all hush hush. But it's like, if we can begin to tell those truths, so we can begin to set each other free.
Ashe, I totally agree. And I feel like in sharing those stories, you make other people feel like they're not alone, not isolated, and like they can share too. And then collectively, we found collective solutions.
Yes.
But if we're not sharing the stories, then everyone feels like they're alone.
Right.
And then it's hard to find a solution because we're not working together. So I 100% agree. Like it's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think people take the responsibility and the burden on themselves rather than actually critiquing the system.
Yeah.
Or like identifying that there's this common denominator that is actually contributing to this reality. Right.
But you know why? We were taught to do that. We were taught it's your fault. You're the problem. You're the reason. You're wrong. You're less than. And because we've been taught that for so long, we have taken that persona on of like, I'm the problem. It's me. I need to do a million things. And then I need to be humble about any little bit of a success that I have. Yes. So that was ingrained in us. Right. And I feel like now we're seeing this evolution of us as women, and also Black women, of coming out of this oppressed shell and saying, no, I deserve to fully express and fully be seen and fully share my gifts and talents. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think in that, it's not only healing for us, but it's healing for the world.
Yes.
Because we are all under an oppressed system.
Yes.
Right? Because the couple of people at the top are oppressing everyone. We might, there are other groups that oppress more than others.
Right.
But if we tell the truth, you know, the more the most oppressed people rise up,
yes,
everybody's getting healed.
Right.
Everybody's coming
Yes.
up. And that's why I feel like it's so important for us to come together and tell these stories,
Yes.
because I do feel like our healing is the healing of humanity.
I agree. It's like men don't benefit from patriarchy either.
No, they lose at the end of the day.
We all lose. So
exactly.
So let's just get this thing figured out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's begin to heal. Let's begin to pour into women. Let's begin to move with empathy, love, and compassion, because in that way, men don't have to uphold this like masculine archetype that's not beneficial for anybody. And women can also feel safe and loved and protected.
Yes, 100%. And I know you talked about the grief of the passing of your brother to gun violence and stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit about like that time and how you got through and how you were getting through? Because I know it's not over.
Man.
And
yes. Yeah. It's so interesting because I don't know. I always have this feeling like, damn, my parents were on drugs. My brother died of gun violence. Like, it's such a Black American just story that's just so, it's not that I don't like to tell it. It's just like, oh, I'm so ready for us to be able to tell a new story.
Yeah.
You know?
And you are that new story.
Yeah.
You are that new story. I'm just going to empower you right now.
Yes.
You know, these things happen, right?
Yeah.
But you are the story. You are the solution. And you rising above, even though these traumatic things happen, like with your parents, but then you got that great GPA and you went into academia and then you went to be a model and then you're thriving, right? And then this other really dark thing happened with the transition of your brother, but you are still thriving. You're living and celebrating the life he had. And you're saying yes, because some people choose not to.
Right.
And so just your existence, right? Your existence is the revolution. Yeah, your existence and your getting through that grief, you know? And I definitely could tell that's tender. So we'll move to the next thing.
I mean, I don't mind talking about it. I'm just like, I just want us collectively to like experience more joy. Yeah. You know?
Is that what helped you get through the grief? Like, because I feel like people need more tools from people like yourself, because I kind of been watching your journey and I'll pull out what I saw. Yeah. Like you just being in nature, you just, you know, fully expressing yourself, because I feel like joy is like the other spectrum of grief. Yeah. And so that's what I saw from the outside looking at. I don't know personally, so I'm asking you personally, but I saw you spending time in nature, spending time in community. Definitely. Really not isolating yourself. Yeah. So that's what I saw from the outside looking in.
Yeah. Coming into community was huge for me. The support of my sisters was so big for me. The support of nature was tremendous. Just being able to purge those frequencies from my body, because there was even times where I was like, mentally, I don't even want to be feeling this. You know what I mean? I just want to I'm ready to be happy, you know? But it's like I still have this weight inside of me, this grief inside of me from losing my brother and the timeline that I was previously attached to all in one moment, you know? And so there was just so much to try to figure out. And in the midst of that, just like not knowing what was next, being in this new place, not having any type of financial stability, it was just a lot of stress. But it really pushed me deeper into my relationship with spirit, and it really pushed me into my divine feminine energy. And that is because all I could do was be still. Be still and receive.
That's the best thing.
Yeah, I couldn't use, you know, I realized that prior to that time, I was using money to operate outside of God's will. Meaning, I was never cutting up. I was never doing anything bad. But it's like I would get an idea and I'm like, okay, I want to make this happen right now. I got the money for it, I'm going to do it. Versus like, okay, God has given me this idea and I know that God will also provide the right people, the right resources, and the right timing upon which to act on that idea.
That part.
So it forced me to just become more receptive because I was sort of still in this, even though I was leaning on community, I was still in this isolated place because I didn't have a car and, I didn't know too many people out here. And I was just like, it was just me in spirit. It was just me in spirit. I really, I got very healthy. After leaving LA, I was sober. I got sober, got really focused on my health, which I'm grateful for because I don't know what navigating that period of time under the influence of alcohol would have been like. Like, I'm so glad I got sober prior to that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just, I still feel my brother. I still see my brother in nature. And I think it's because I grieved in nature. Yeah. And so he showed up in nature and he continues to show up in nature. And I know, okay, a specific bird just flew by. In acknowledgement of that,
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And we all will transition, and just you tapping in and knowing that his spirit is still here with you and in nature, you can connect in this way. It's not in the human form, and we mourn that. And then one day someone will be mourning us, but we always get this opportunity to realize that we are the oneness that is always and always available and always ever present. And so that's just very beautiful. And I just want to say, like, Darn and I went through grief just last year too. And it does come in waves, and you never over it. So if anyone's listening is going through that, I feel like that time in nature, community, and really sitting with your feelings. And one thing that you just said that I think is so profound is you were in the season of, you say being broke, I say budgeting. I'm budgeting, I ain't broke, but I am budgeting, okay? We budgeting. We ain't just like slapping it out. We ain't just like, there was a season where I was like this, and it's like, for the last 2 years I was budgeting. Right. So, but I love what you said, and I really want to pull it out because I think it's really important. And this is what I learned in the last 2 years is that when you get still, and sometimes when you are budgeting or broke, however you want to talk about it, it allows you to be more available to God's divine voice in your life. And I got it download about 3 years ago because I was budgeting. I was surrendering to God whenever you about to make this happen because it ain't on me. Right. And it humbles you to the point where you're like, all right, I trust and I'm surrendered to how this is supposed to divinely align. And it makes you not rush and say, oh, I can do this. I have the power. I have the finances. No, but you're sitting. And as I waited these 3 years for this certain download to manifest, it came in perfect alignment. Had it happened at a different time, I would have had exhausted so many resources trying to make it happen in the way that I thought, not in the way that I felt. But being still, I was aware of the feeling and how to move and who to speak to, who to release and let go when it didn't align because I didn't have it. And so I think it's a very humbling but profound moment to be in. So if anyone is listening, if you're in that moment of budgeting or brokenness, tune into God. Tune in because this might be the biggest part of your life where you really get clear on your next best step.
It shifted everything. It shifted just even how I approach my day on a day-to-day, and you realize how much energy you exhaust and, how burnt out we are trying to make things happen. But those guided, inspired, intentional steps, you take one of those, you've just surpassed the 10 steps you would have been trying to figure it out on your own. You can take one giant leap, exert energy one time versus all this going, trying to figure it out, because God is like, okay, I've given you a vision, but let me clear that path. Let me make it easy for you. Like the amount of ease that has been allowed to enter into my life in this new chapter is just beautiful. It's just beautiful. And
it's
again,
priceless.
The surrender. The peace, the priceless. It's just the surrender. Like, it's just, It's beautiful.
Yes, I love that. And what would you say would be, now as you come into this season of feeling even more fully expressed,
Yeah.
what do you feel like is the most important thing to you when it comes to maintaining your well-being?
The most important thing when it comes to maintaining my well-being, I would probably say is my morning routine.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't skip that, right?
Yeah. Waking up, not looking at my phone first thing in the morning. I know that can be a struggle, but it's, for me, it's essential that I just like sit. And I've been doing this thing lately where I wake up and the first thing that I think or say is, I am that I am. And it's just this reminder that I am co-creating this experience with God. I am part of the oneness. I'm not separate.
Yeah.
And so if there is a reality that I imagine, if there's a way that I imagine my day unfolding, then I can lean into the belief that that is so.
Yeah.
And it be working.
Yeah. And it's meant, right? It's
Yeah.
prophesied that
Yeah.
we just need to be still and hear.
Right.
Are you ready to take your health and wellness to the next level? Well, listen up. This podcast is brought to you by Aura, the ultimate smart ring for optimizing your sleep, activity, and overall well-being. Aura is not just any wearable device. It's a game changer. With advanced technology packed into a sleek, comfortable ring, Aura helps you understand your body like never before. Wondering how Aura can benefit you? Let me break it down. First, they have sleep tracking. Aura analyzes your sleep stages, your heart rate, and more to provide personalized insights into your sleep quality. Say goodbye to those restless nights and hello to restorative sleep. But that's not all. Aura also tracks your activity levels, giving you a comprehensive view of your daily movement and helping you stay active and motivated. Here's the kicker. Aura's readiness score, its unique feature, evaluates your body's readiness for the day based on sleep, activity, and recovery, empowering you to make informed decisions about your daily routine. It's definitely helped me prioritize my rest when I need to, and when I can be more active, I'm ready to be more active. So whether you're an athlete aiming for peak performance or simply striving for better health, Aura is your trusted companion on the journey to well-being. Join millions of users who have transformed their lives with Aura. Visit auraring.com/Koya today to learn more. And there's been a lot of manipulation around the word, but one thing that I always hold on to is the power of the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
And how we all have access to that divine connection.
Yes.
And so when you make time for that every day in your morning routine, that's like tapping in and saying, I'm not trying to do life myself. I'm not trying to do this day myself. I am leaning into the divine calling on my day and my life. And so I think that's so beautiful and necessary.
Yeah.
I feel like literally, if you want to know my top tip on well-being, it's that same thing. Tap in with spirit in the morning.
Tap in with spirit in the morning.
Yeah.
When your will becomes aligned with God's will, that's when life just becomes magical.
Magical. I love that. And so what else do you include in your morning routine?
Yes. So prayer, meditation. And during my meditation, I'll do Reiki on myself.
Yeah.
So just charging myself up, seeing where I'm feeling blocked or where I can, just give myself a little bit more energy. And then breath work.
Yeah.
And stretching.
I love that.
Yeah, so
I
just
love
really
that.
getting in my body. I think that's the other thing that grief really taught me too. Just to go back to that is there are certain levels of pain that you can intellectualize or certain experiences that you can intellectualize. When I'm a kid, I went through certain experiences and it taught me this and now I'm this. And so a lot of my healing journey had taken place in my head up until that point. But when my brother died, it was like, there's no reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can sit here and say, because I've been initiated into deeper levels of grief, I can embody more light and it helps me hold space for more people. But I would never say that that is the reason why my brother died. I don't think my brother sacrificed his life for me.
Right. Yeah.
And so because I was hit with this grief and this sadness and this experience that I couldn't rationalize or intellectualize, I had to feel it.
Yeah.
So I realized I've not been feeling my feelings this whole time. I've been cut off from my body, and I've been living life in my head.
Yeah.
And I think that's also part of that feminine energy too, is getting into the body, getting into your senses, learning how to feel again. It's like, I think the head can be a very masculine place to be, very logical place to be. But when you're in your body and you learn to listen to that gut, into that intuition, it's like, that's when you can receive that information that allows you to move with spirit. So that was huge for me.
That's so beautiful. I agree. Like when I learned yoga, I released so much trauma.
Yes.
I mean, tight hips, feet, neck, like whole body was tight, especially being an athlete. And so it was actually painful at first. And some people check out because it's painful and they're like, oh, this is not for me.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to move through that pain. Just like with childbirth, you move through some discomfort. I mean, and then there's a blessing on the other side.
Yeah.
And so that's what I heard when you're telling you, like, move through this very uncomfortable time.
Yeah.
And now you experience the blessing, because it's really, like you said, not because of what happened, but how you responded to what happened.
Yes.
Because you could have responded in a different way, and some people do.
Yeah.
And it's not what's best for them, but you responded in like, let me be still, let me pour into me, and let me make this a blessing.
Yeah.
So that's what you chose. Because I feel like all of us have a choice in life.
Yeah.
And we can choose how we navigate challenges.
Yeah.
And so I'm so grateful you chose light.
Thank you.
Your light path, and you chose to go deeper, and you chose to honor yourself and say, you know what, I'm not going to let myself consume by this darkness.
Yeah.
Because that was darkness.
Yeah.
And instead of letting that consume you, you became the light.
Yeah.
And now you're illuminating us all.
Thank you.
With your wisdom, with your beauty, with your grace, with your well-being. And we're just so grateful for that.
Thank you.
So
I
grateful.
received that.
And kind of where I want to go now is just into like, as you're building, like, where do you see yourself moving into? Like, where do you feel like you're divinely guided in this present moment?
I think holding space for women is so important.
Yeah.
And I just want to continue to hold space for women. Daughter was created as like the birthright program, providing sponsorships to go back to Africa, but now expanding into retreats across the diaspora. And I think it's just so important that, you know, particularly like melanated womb holders are being poured into at this time. And so any wisdom that I can share with people through being in retreat and sharing sacred space with them, I think is just going to be vital. And so continuing to hold space, and then also poetry. So Daughter is written through poetry and prose. And so using my voice has been a very key component in my healing journey.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the biggest part of why I'm here, is just to like leave a legacy of words that inspire, whether they're spoken or written or you hear it on an album. Just continuing to grow in my musical journey and my poetry journey is big for me.
That's so beautiful. Speaking of your poetry journey,
Yes.
I'm going to read this beautiful poem on the back of your book that I absolutely love.
Thank you.
The healing hurts. The medicine is bitter. Avoiding what we need in exchange for what's familiar. Resistance to letting go. We have a hard time with surrender. Enter into the void. The dark won't last forever. Can you tell me about what inspired this and what it means to you?
Yeah, I mean, I talk about this in the beginning of the book too, but it's like I use the dung beetle as an example where in its infancy, it's born essentially into a pile of dung, and the thing that feeds it in the beginning of its life cannot be the thing that sustains it. And oftentimes as human beings, we stay on that pile of dung and we forget that it stinks.
Right.
You know, we stay in this place that we were born in. We live within the habits, the patterns and behaviors that we were born in, and we never ascend beyond that because the familiarity of it feels good, it feels comfortable, but we don't realize that it's actually quite chaotic, or that it's destructive, or that it's just not helping us grow. And so we have to be willing to enter that void of the unknown. And I think a lot of people are afraid of that unknown, but on the other side of that can be so much beauty. You know, that's the cocoon phase where it's like you can stay the caterpillar if you want to, but the butterfly has wings.
Yeah.
But to get there, you got to go into the darkness.
Yeah. Ashe. I love that, because I feel like coming from being a Southern girl myself, coming from Tennessee, and then, you know, going to California, moving out was there's a lot of things things I had to relearn and unlearn.
Yes.
And some new programming and systems, a way of living my life, a way of practicing my connection with the divine, and all these things that I had to do differently.
Yeah.
And now I get to experience a different vibration of life. And now that I'm back, went to California for 17 years, and now I'm back home, I get to bring some of that back to my family. Some of them receiving it, some of them not, but that's neither here nor there, right? We're just here to be the light.
Right.
Like the sun is here to shine. It's not responsible for who gets burned, who gets, a tan. It's really based on the person. And so I love that poem, and I love that analogy, because we do have to let go of those things in our upbringing and all those things in our past that doesn't serve our highest and greatest version of ourselves. And so I think that's a beautiful reminder to people, like, don't stay stuck. Don't stay in the dark. Go through your own metamorphosis so that you can be all that you meant to be in this lifetime.
Yeah. The isolation, just the feeling like you're crazy. I'm gonna just say it because people might be going through it. The feeling like you're losing it, and because it's like it is that unknown. It's like all of a sudden I'm coming into awareness. Everything that I thought was truth is no longer resonant with me. So what is the truth?
Yeah.
And then having to discover that for yourself, and realizing, like, wanting to take everybody on that journey, like you said, but realizing you're the only one that you can take on that journey, but also knowing that we are all one. So when you take yourself on that journey, you assist the collective.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. And we all have that opportunity. So I love that. I also wanted to talk a little bit more about, like, kind of like your experience with plant medicine and how that's assisted you. Because I know that's something that you want to explore more of and share with others. How do you feel like that's aligning you with your truth, and how you expect to take others on that journey?
Yeah, so I touched on it earlier. My first plant medicine experience was in 2019, and that was with Iboga. And it was such a beautiful experience that opened me up to so much awareness of my ancestors and just my purpose in this life. However, I realized that it is essential to have melanated womb holders also holding space for melanated womb holders, because our experiences on the medicine are so different. My experience was so different from the other people in that room. No one's experience was worse. No one's experience was better. It was just different.
Right.
I connected to my ancestors in a different way. And so I want to be able to hold space for those who are having similar experiences, so that they don't feel isolated within a space, within a context that is meant for them to heal.
Right.
Because that's how I felt. I felt isolated within a context that is meant to expand me. And I had to do my own sort of integration process to understand what kind of happened within that space. And so as I continue to move forward, I am currently training under Althea Thompson Lawton. But she is an incredible leader. I'm apprenticed to her, and we will continue to train, go to Peru, learn how to serve the medicine, hosting retreats. We have a retreat in September coming up in Jamaica, where we will be working with Hape and psilocybin. And so I just want to be able to continue to hold space and grow to a place where I can host, medicine retreats for those who I know are going to have the experiences similar to the one I had. It was a very it was just transformative. Even when I think back to it, I'm like, the medicine continued to work with me 24 hours after the retreat ended.
Yeah.
Everyone went home.
Yeah.
And I was still in it.
Right.
Deep in it.
Right.
The shaman's looking at me like, girl, I'm tired. I just stayed up 2 nights and I'm still deep in the medicine. And it's like, it was just a very profound experience. And then again, in 2022, that experience was a little bit different with ayahuasca. Grandmother, still such a huge experience. And I just really feel like plants have the power to shift this reality, and not just the plant medicine and the plants that we ingest, but being out in nature. Like, it's all part of the connection, right? It's like, it's the cycle, it's the umbilical cord. I think the plant medicine does a great job of reminding us that we have that umbilical cord and that we're always connected to the oneness. But then being out in nature is what sustains it. So that integration, changing the habits and the lifestyle so that you're supporting that connection is essential.
Absolutely. I love that. And thanks for sharing your journey because I've done Aya twice. And in that first instance, I was in a very sacred space. I was out in nature and both experiences were profound and I learned a lot. But the first, I was held in ceremony with people that could really hold ceremony with me. And the shaman was really invested. And I had a friend there and she was, had done at least 15 to 20 other sittings. And so she knew how to hold space for me. Yeah. Whereas the second time I was in a group of people I was going through things and they were like, oh yeah, you were doing this and laughing. And I'm just like, I felt so like, okay, I'm having this deep experience and y'all are like taking it some other type of way, and I didn't feel like, didn't feel like I can integrate that as well as I integrated the first one. Whereas people came to me and like, oh, I experienced this because I was singing like loud enough, right? It evokes everything.
It's our I was like dancing and moving and I was like, I just want to get up. When I did Iboga, I didn't purge. I was like, this is feeding me on a cellular level. I've been malnourished. I literally have chills as I say that. I'm like, I have been spiritually malnourished for hundreds of years. And now my cells and my DNA are waking up in this moment. I'm not, this is not coming out of me. I'm not wasting a drop of this, and I'm like moving and dancing. And I think just the levels of, trauma and experience and the intention going into the medicine can sometimes be different, right? Because it's like, these things are becoming quite popular and, the fact that we're talking about it on a podcast and it's not some hush-hush thing, but it's like, as melanated womb holders, when we're coming to the medicine, I just find that the level of reverence is so different and the intention to heal our bloodlines is so different. And we are serious about that work because we understand what we're meant to do in this lifetime. It's not about having the experience and going back to have a little kiki and say, I had this like radical experience and I saw God, It's like, I have work to do to heal my bloodline. And that's why I'm here.
100%. I call it legacy work. We got legacy work, y'all. I love that. And thank you for sharing that experience. Cause like you said, it was so taboo. And, I think one thing that I want to have on the Lifestyle Design podcast is experiencing all these different facets of life from many different perspectives. So we realize it's not about a right or wrong. It's about hearing a story and experiences, and each one of us gets to decide, do I want to have this experience? Would I be open to an experience like that? By hearing other people's stories, sometimes they're traumatic, sometimes they're not, but we are all responsible for our own choices in life. And I think that's what's beautiful. And I think, what we're seeing in the world is more people being open to people not having the same experiences as them. Whereas before it's like, okay, this is those type of people. This is those type of people. And my personality, my human design is like, I like to explore, hang out with, and kiki with different types of people. Absolutely. And it feeds my soul in a certain way. And I love, while that is true, the deeper point to what you said, how important it is for us as Black women and the trauma that we've been through to have space held by other Black women and Black womb holders specifically is important because when things come up, we can share it and have a resonance and relatability. And I do think that's very important. And that's something that came to me about 4 years ago. And I was like, wow, I'm feeling like I need a deeper sense of support. And I had these visions coming up about the past, about slavery, about rape, about like all these things, right? And I'm like, how do I deal with this?
And nobody can relate.
Unless you've been through it. I'm the only one in the space who's like, yo, I have a cellular memory of, like, I can vividly remember that happening to me as an enslaved person. And nobody in here can hold space for that. And I cannot explain to you what that feels like.
It feels like it's happening right now.
Yeah.
I have to purge it because it feels
Yeah.
like it's happening right now.
Yeah, I got chills because I had that same experience. And this was with breath work. I wasn't even doing, I was doing deep holotropic breath work.
Ooh.
And that visual came and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to go there.
Yeah.
Come on, bring me out of this.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I experienced it because it made me appreciate what our ancestors went through to give us the freedom that we have today.
Yeah.
And it made me realize that I get to choose to be a light. And if it ain't easy for me now, it was 20,000 times worse.
Yes.
For my ancestors when they went through it. And so it empowers me not to let the tough times and the down times and the budgeting times and the traumatic times take me out.
Yeah.
And so whenever I feel like I'm overcome with darkness, I remember that very visceral visual, like it was real.
Yes.
And I'm like, not gonna give up. Not gonna give up.
I'm so just glad we're having this conversation. So glad you said that because it's just an experience that not many can relate to. But it's like, and the sad part to me, it's like I've gone through Queen Afua's program and Sacred Woman and all that stuff, and you realize I think the statistic is up to 80 or 90% of women have fibroids and cysts and stuff like that at this time, and it's like we're all carrying these experiences in ourselves. Yeah, like no wonder. And so I guess through my experience with it coming up in the ayahuasca, I've been able to contextualize and understand, how that is manifesting in Black women's health. And I think that that is also another part of my mission in this world. I think my primary mission is the plant medicine and the writing, but I think side quest is just continuing to spread knowledge about the importance of healing our wombs and purging that trauma and understanding like these physical outcomes are the result of stress and pain that we have never looked at, and we have to look at it. We have to. I'm glad you mentioned Koya Webb. That is my spiritual mother. Yeah. I love and adore her. And when I went through Sacred Woman as well, like just the practices, the breath work she had us doing, the morning Epsom salt baths, like those are things that I continue to do, even though I'm not going through the gateways, because there are rituals that I realize like this is going to bless my life for the rest of my life. Amen. And I think when it comes to womb wellness, like living a lifestyle that is nurturing to your womb after many, many generations and generations of intergenerational trauma that we've experienced in our wombs and that we've experienced even in our lifetime with me, experiencing, sexual assault and things like that. Yeah. Like that has to be healed. Right. And Queen was very integral in my healing of my womb and my manifestation of my sacred partner, because doing that deep healing, I feel like helped me release resentment that was actually stuck there. But all the breath work and all the food and all the herbs and all the practices and just understanding that I wasn't alone and that this is a pathway out, it gave me the confidence like, hey, I'm going to do this. It's a lot. And, it's a really full program. But I feel like when you go through that, and then I went through her impeccable listening, it clarified even more connection for me because I had processed so much trauma. Right. Sometimes we also don't have clarity because we have so much trauma that keeps coming up and distracting us from the voice. Like I feel like God is always speaking to us, but there are so many distractions we might not hear it. And so when you're doing this chanting and these rituals, you actually are aligning so you can hear better. And so that's what I love about, her impeccable listening. It talks about, the traps that you go through and the things that you need to do to center on asking the questions that you need to ask and receiving the answers. And I think having guides like Queen Afua, guides like yourself, it really does help people realize that you do have to be intentional. Yeah. You can't just walk and just expect it to drop on you because there's so many things that are vying for your attention. Social media, parents' requests, partners' requests, children's requests. Yeah. All of those things are noise when it comes to
divine downloads,
Yes.
you know, and yes, they can happen, but you need the space for them to happen.
Right.
And so I love that you mentioned that, because it helped me heal and create more space to listen to the voice of God.
Yeah, the 4 a.m. wake ups.
That part, I shifted it to 6 a.m.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
I'll just be honest, like, we'll have to shift that back just a little bit, just a taste later in the day.
Right. Yeah, but you know, that early wake up, just so you can have that time to sit with yourself, is so essential. That stillness, that's that feminine energy. It's just like that receptivity. I recently saw something about like lead and arsenic being found in tampons, like a brand that occupies like 70% of shelf space. I can't remember the brand, but it was disclosed yesterday. And I was just like, man, first of all, our wombs are being deliberately attacked.
100%.
Second of all, there's a reason why this is being disclosed now.
Yeah.
It was like, on one hand, I was sad about it. On the other hand, I was like, let's go. It's time for women to rise up.
Yes.
We cannot continue to take what we've been handed. What is it going to take for us to see that the system is deliberately harming us, that it's waging war on us? We can't continue to be blind and pretend like this isn't happening. It's like it's revolution time.
It's revolution time. Yes. And I feel like, I think how many years ago, I'm not sure exactly, but I feel like at least for 6 or 7 years, like I've been using the moon cup, and like knowing that option, I think is really important.
Yeah.
And I want to be more vocal about what I've been doing for my own personal womb wellness, especially as I prepare my fertility journey and stuff like that. Like how, like, yes, I look healthy, but like I was low in vitamin D. I was low in DHEA. I needed to do these things to get my nutrition up so that my womb can be well enough to carry a child. Yeah. And I think, you know, women over the age of 30 even need to be aware, whether they want to have a child or not, like what it takes.
Right.
It takes something different than your regular like fitness and be healthy information to make sure your womb is well, because that affects our emotions. It affects so many other things. I mean, well-being is holistic. And I love that now people are talking about the harm, and I hadn't seen that. So thanks for letting me know. Yeah. Because I mean, I do have I sometimes, like if I'm traveling or something, I have like, you know, some extra tampons if I need it natural, all cotton. But it's so sad that, like you said, this very popular brand is damaging. And I've seen though videos of women talking about, oh, I got this toxic shock syndrome and losing mobility and it ruining their lives because of a tampon. Right. Like, you know, something that you don't even think, you think it would be healthy for you. Right. But it goes back to show, like you're saying, like, things are not set up for our well-being. Unfortunately, the people that are setting up the systems don't care about people, they just care about money. Right. And when we have a government run by people who don't care about people, you have a very toxic system. Yeah. And it's time for that system to change. So I can't wait till some room holders become president and in all the seats, because we care. We care because we are birthers of the nation. Right. Whether we carry a child or not, like that is our job. And so it makes sense for us to be able to nurture from all of the destruction that has happened. We need to lead our humanity into a more healed position, because right now we are like not well.
Yeah. I read something too. It was just like a bit of a more like esoteric take on fibroids and cysts, but it was like women don't realize the amount of creative energy that they possess in their womb. And we have the creative energy. We have enough creative energy to shift society and to make art and to create new worlds. But because we are working jobs or in systems that don't allow that creative energy to come through, it creates growths inside of us. It's just the energy wanting to come through that's not being properly channeled. And so our wombs begin to heal when we begin to express that creative energy through it.
That is beautiful. Yeah. I feel like creativity is a healing modality, and that's a beautiful take. Yeah. And as we wrap up, I just have a couple rapid fire questions for you. Best book that you've read in the last year?
Best book I've read in the last year, Of Spirit and Water by Patrice Malidoma. Is it Malidoma? Yeah, Patrice Malidoma Somé.
I have to check that one out. I haven't read that one. Awesome. Your favorite fruit?
Ooh, I'll say watermelon.
Seeded watermelon?
We gotta be specific
watermelon. We need the seeds. Your favorite vegetable?
Vegetable, okra. I'm like, I think I'm my
Ooh.
ancestors' baby. I'm like, watermelon and okra. I could eat that all day, every day. Them
I eat
two,
okra not because I like it, but because of what it does.
yeah,
It's for the womb.
I like
Yes,
it.
that's so good. And last question, if you could change anything in the world, what would it be?
Change anything in the world? Wow. That's such a big question.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would just increase the levels of love and empathy, because I feel like if I can do that, then everything else is going to shift, because that is the force of revolution. That is the evolutionary force, and the revolutionary force is love.
I love that.
So,
I
yeah.
love that. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's been such an honor just diving deep with you and speaking with you. Is there anything you want to leave us with?
I'm just grateful. Thank you for taking the time to dive deep with me. I think I've lived a life where so much of the perception of me has been from the outside, and who I am as a physical being, and my, my vehicle, my avatar. And I absolutely love who I am, and I do my best to care for this, but I am also so proud of who I have become as a spiritual being. So taking the time to share that and be acknowledged for that really means a lot for me. And hopefully in that, it's able to inspire other people to dive deeper beyond the physical.
Thank you. It has. Like this conversation was healing for me. So I know it
Good.
has been for so many people listening. So thank you
Good.
so much.
Thank you.
All right, y'all. Until next time, make sure you love yourself, love others, and love the planet. And please subscribe. And if you haven't already, make sure you rate the podcast 5 stars if you loved it, and give us some feedback. If you don't want to give it 5 stars, then just email me and let me know why. Because I love hearing your advice. I love growing and expanding, and I love you being part of the community. So if you're not already subscribed, make sure you subscribe and share with those you love so that they can benefit as well. Peace and love.